You can follow all the right money rules and still feel like you're never getting ahead. You can budget, save, work harder, and even tithe, and still the scoreboard will barely move. After the last couple of years of working with faithful families and other business owners and studying what Scripture actually teaches us to do, I have learned that money doesn't just follow rules, it follows wisdom. Above other things, wealth loves wisdom. And the poor person's habit is to chase money instead of chasing wisdom. So today in Proverbs chapter 2 is what we're going to go over. We're going to talk about the habit that keeps people stuck, the habit to attract wisdom, and ultimately what you can start doing today to shift towards that and become attractive to these things. So this is part 2 of the Proverbs series, where we're going to pull all the business and wealth lessons that we can from each chapter. But today in Proverbs chapter 2, this is where it begins. There are 3 key passages that I came across, and it begins with this: My child, listen to what I say and treasure my commands. Tune your ears to wisdom and concentrate on understanding. Cry out for insight, and again he says, ask for understanding. Search for them as you would for silver. Seek them like hidden treasures. So very quickly, Solomon is writing to his son and telling him basically, chase wisdom the way others chase money. Chase wisdom the way you would for silver, the way treat it like it's a hidden treasure. Because the poor person's habit is to chase money directly, and the wealthy person's habit, and Solomon was extremely wealthy, he would have been worth trillions and trillions of dollars. The wealthy person's habit is to chase wisdom and let wealth follow you. So as I was reading this, it reminded me of a couple of things that we'll talk about later. But the first thing it reminded me of was the law of attraction. And we hear this a lot on social media, but I don't think we understand it very well. And as the name implies, the goal is to become attractive to whatever you're trying to achieve. So if you are looking to become wealthy, you have to be the kind of person wealth would want to hang around. If you want to become wealthy, you have to be attractive to wealth. So in essence, what Solomon is saying, and it's not just about wealth, but what he is saying is that if you want to become wealthy, you need to be the kind of person that God can trust with more. If you want to become wealthy, be the kind of person who can steward it well. That is the kind of person wealth wants to be around. The person who chases wisdom is the person who is attractive to wealth. That is what he is saying. And again, this is not just about wealth, but he's using it as an example for a reason, because it is important. He says, search for it as you would for silver. Chase wisdom the way others chase money. But to continue, in verse 5, he continues to say, then you will understand what it means to fear the Lord, and you will gain knowledge of God, for the Lord grants wisdom. From his mouth come knowledge and understanding. He grants a treasure of common sense to the honest. He is a shield to those who walk with integrity. He guards the path of the just and protects those who are faithful to him. So that is verses 5 through 8. Key phrases here: tune your ears, concentrate, cry out, search as for silver, seek like hidden treasure, for the Lord grants wisdom, common sense, all those great things. And the key points I've taken from this is that common sense is not so common. As even though we call it common sense, even in the Bible, it explicitly says common sense comes from God. So why is common sense not so common? Because not very many people understand the Lord. Not very many people understand who God is. That's why common sense is not so common. But those who understand God, they have wisdom, they chase wisdom, and they are granted with common sense, which doesn't sound like much, but I'm sure you come across the people where they just blow your mind, not how amazing they are, but how little common sense they have. And the Bible, it's telling you why right here in verses 5 through 8. But as we read through those verses 5 through 8, we can break it down into 3 basic behaviors that will make a person wealthy, will build a great business. People with these behaviors, and I've noticed this by interviewing so many different people, I've become very good at noticing whether or not they have these behaviors, and when they do, I know they're going to win. Or if they don't have these things, I immediately know this is not the right person. But the first behavior that I've noticed from those verses was that the first person who is going to win, the first person who is going to build a great business and become wealthy, is somebody who has focused attention. You can, and we see that through tune your ears, concentrate on understanding. And what that means for us, what that means for you, is that you need to be intentional with what you read. Yes, in scripture, but in other things. The quickest way to see if somebody's going to win is if they have shiny object syndrome. If they see a shiny object over there and they start to chase it, and before they even get there, they run to the next shiny object, whatever. Like there's a little glare and they run to the next one. That is not a person who's going to win. And I can see this there. The people with shiny object syndrome, they're the most excited people to start, but they're the quickest people to quit. They're the quickest ones to say, is this a get rich quick scheme? And then as soon as they find out it's not a get rich quick scheme, they're the ones who quit because they wanted to make sure, but that's exactly what they were looking for. They're just looking for the next shiny object. And no matter who you are or what you're doing or what you're trying to achieve, the truth is, if you stick to one thing long enough, you can make most things work. But no matter what it is, no matter how good you are, if you constantly jump ship, it doesn't matter. You're not going to make anything work. So you need to be able to have focused attention. Put your attention where it needs to be. And the second one is an intense desire and your emotional side. And we see this through the cry out for insight, ask for understanding. And the application for you today is that you need to actually desire wisdom over money. And you can say you do, and maybe you want to desire wisdom over money, but your actions will speak for themselves. You can lie to yourself and you can say that that's all you want. All you want is wisdom. I just want wisdom. But in the back of your mind, you know the only reason you're saying that is because you're trying to trick yourself or trick the law of attraction or trick God, whoever you're trying to trick. But your actions speak for themselves. Your actions will prove it all. When's the last time, let me ask you, when's the last time you picked up a book? You say you want wisdom, but you don't read books. And I'm not some kind of, like, I'm not a genius, but I do read more now than I ever have. And because when I was in school, they never really gave me a reason to read other than, oh, you just got to do it. I didn't understand it. I understand it now, which is why I do read more now. When's the last time you listened to a podcast rather than putting music on in the car? It's a small thing, but you're chasing wisdom. You don't just chase wisdom. You don't just pick and choose the right times to do it. You are also always chasing wisdom. So that's something you have to be honest with yourself. And this, another thing, this passage, this whole chapter reminded me a lot of a lot of different things. This passage is reminding me of the book Think and Grow Rich. And the main goal of that book, or the overall lesson, is that you need an intense desire for what you want to have. And Proverbs actually talks about this in other chapters, so we're going to get there. But what I've learned from my leaders, my mentors, people who have coached me to help me, is that from that book as well, is that champions are the ones who stay excited the entire time. Because if you are depending on motivation, even motivation, which we talked about last chapter, or the first chapter, is that even motivation requires discipline. You need to be able to have that intense desire. You need to want it. You need to be emotional about it for a long period of time and with consistency. It needs to be consistent and it needs to be constant. If you can do this, people who want it bad enough, they're going to get it. The person who wants it is the one who is attractive to wealth or to success or to whatever it is that you're looking to achieve. It is that person who has an intense desire that is going to win. Even in sports, you can see it. The one who is the most intense about their training and their practice and in the game, you're almost like, man, this guy's a little too intense. But you don't hear stories of Kobe, who is saying things of him being passive. He's too intense even for other professionals, but that's why he's one of the greatest of all time. It's because he was intense about it. He had an intense desire to win, and that is the second behavior. And it is a behavior. It's not just an emotion that comes and goes. It's a practiced behavior. You need to practice this kind of thing, because it's not natural. None of this is natural, by the way. The third behavior is a persistent effort. So first you need to have focused attention and intense desire, but you also need to be persistent in your effort and seek for it as for silver. Seek for it as if it's a hidden treasure. And If you can picture it with me, we've all seen that picture where it's like a miner who stops mining right before the diamonds. This is why that I think that's a perfect representation. And maybe I can put it on the screen if I remember to edit. I don't usually edit, but hopefully you know what I'm talking about. You need a persistent effort. And this applies to where you place your time, how you treat your money, how you go about your business. It's all about repetition. You need to invest in your wisdom. It needs to be persistent. You need to go after it. It can't just be something you can't coast and assume that it's just going to follow you. You need to be persistent. It needs to be intentional. And what this reminds me of is the book Atomic Habits. And this is one of the lessons. Again, this is another great book you should read. Atomic Habits. Basically, the overall lesson is that any kind of growth, as long as it is, even if it's small, as long as it's consistent, you do it daily, any growth greater than zero will always amount to something significant. And you can see this when we sit with people, we talk about the rule of 72. I'm not going to go in depth with that, but the rule of 72 basically tells you when you're going to double your money. And as long as you have time and consistency, it will double. It's not a question if, it will double. You want to do it as fast as you can, obviously, but it will double. That's the point. If you take a penny, to give you an example, if you take a penny and you double it every single day for 30 days, by the end of day 31, it'll be over $10 million. But the key is that on day 15, if you had stopped, even though on day 31 you would have $10 million, by day 15, if you had stopped, you would have only had about $163. If you had stopped before day 15, you only got about $100. That is the difference, and that is the importance of persistency. As long as it is greater than zero, any kind of growth, as long as it is greater than zero and it is consistent, will amount to something significant. So you need a persistent effort. It needs to be something that you attract, that you go after daily, because the wisdom you gain from God, as you pursue wisdom, you are pursuing God. And the more wisdom you gain from God, the more He's able to give you, because now you're able to handle more. And so that's the third behavior, persistent effort. The next key passage is going to start in verse 9. And it says, "Then you will understand what is right, just, and fair. You will find the right way to go. For wisdom will enter your heart, and knowledge will fill you with joy. Wise choices will watch over you. Understanding will keep you safe. Wisdom will save you from evil people." And it keeps going, and it talks about how evil men will turn you down to dark paths, and they go down those paths themselves. And it ends with, they take pleasure in doing these things. And so, key points with this passage, these verses, that was 9 through 14, is that then you will understand what is right, just, and fair. Wise choices will watch over you. Understanding will keep you safe. It will save you from evil people. And this one wasn't so obvious as I was reading it as the first passage was, but the lessons are very clear as you get to read it a little bit more, as you understand it a little bit more. It's giving us a very clear framework to make our decisions. If you want to be wealthy, it's not just about placing your money. It's not just about money. It's about how you make decisions. It's about the kind of person you're becoming. And the filter, if you've ever wondered, should I do business with this person, or should I make this investment, or should I do this or do that? The filter is, stay away from shady people. If it seems shady, stay away from it. You don't put your reputation, you don't put your morals, you don't put any of that on the line for something that's a maybe. I might make money, so I think I can look past it. You stay away from it, or you cross the line and you're going down the wrong path. There's no coming back. And so the decision process is, I hear it a lot actually, is I hear from people who are making tons of money, executives, and people making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. They tell me, I'm making money, but I don't want to do this. Whatever strategy they're going with, or whatever business they're in, or whatever person who is helping them already, I hear it all the time. I'm making money and it's obviously working, but I feel wrong about it if I don't want to do this if it's compromising my faith. That's what they're coming to. And the framework is you got to ask yourself, is this right? Is this just? Is this fair? Before you ask, how much can I make? That's what you should be asking yourself. Is this right, just, and fair? Because it's wisdom that will protect you. Wisdom is protection. And you see this again in a lot of the Bible, but wisdom is protection. It protects you from all these different things, from evil, from going down the wrong path, from losing what you have. It is protection. And most people, what I've noticed is that most people, they get hurt not because God didn't protect them, but because they ignored the warnings. They were handed wisdom on a silver platter and they ignored it. He didn't not put the protections in place. You just didn't take them. And one of the examples of somebody I've worked with, this was actually a good person. He was a good person trying to help. Just to give you an example of the decision process, is this right, just, and fair? This man, he had his own family, and he had family members who needed help, and he wanted to help. And he asked himself the question, is it right? And obviously the question, if you should help your family, is it right? The answer is yes. Is it just? Yes, his family needed him. But was it fair was a different answer. He didn't answer whether or not it was fair. But basically what had happened is this man had the right intentions to help a family member. It was right and just, but it wasn't fair in two different ways. If you want a good business deal, if you want a good deal, it needs to be fair for all parties involved, not just for one. And we all know those people who are trying to get something from you. That's why people don't like salesmen, because it's not meant to be. They're not trying to get what's fair. They're trying to rip you off so that they can get what they want. That's why people don't like salesmen. But that is why right, just, and fair. This guy wasn't trying to rip anybody off, but it wasn't fair to himself. That's the thing. He was actually doing more for this person than his family could afford. He was giving what he didn't have. It was not fair to his family to give this other family member a ton of money and leave his family in such a terrible position, because what happened was that he couldn't feed his family. But not only that, this person he was trying to help had money problems because they didn't have the wisdom to handle the money that they had, and he just handed them a bunch of money. It didn't help. It wasn't fair to that person either. It only enabled their poor decisions. So it wasn't fair to his family. He couldn't feed them. It wasn't fair to that person. He just enabled their poor decisions. Is it right, just, and fair? And hopefully that example wasn't all over the place. I know I was bouncing around with that one. But is it right, just, and fair? That is the framework you need to make proper and good business decisions, wealth investments, whatever it is. Is it right, just, and fair? Just because you can make money with it doesn't mean it is. In the next verse, I'm not going to read this entire one, but this is verses 18 through 20. And the key ones here is this one is a little bit, we're moving away from money, and we're focusing very heavy on the identity of a wealthy person, because we see it all the time that wealthy people are unhappy or they fall into all these kinds of traps, whether it's unethical or it's just it's lustful decisions that destroy their family and their entire lives, and then they lose all their wealth. That's what these verses are talking about now. In verses 16 through 20, wisdom will save you from the immoral woman, seductive words. Entering this house leads to death. And yes, Proverbs is written by a man, Solomon, and he's writing it to his son, which is why he's talking about an immoral woman. But this applies to both genders, men and women. Lust is something to stay away from. And as I've been reading, I've noticed that the wealthiest man, the wisest man, both were Solomon, but as well as the physically strongest man, as well as the holiest man, they all fell to lust. That's why Solomon is very clear about this. Stay away from her house. Stay away from lust. It only leads to death. And beyond wealth, you just lost your life. Forget losing your wealth. You just lost your life. It is a very literal warning, but also a picture of of seduction in general. He's talking about shiny objects. If we can extract the lesson, stay away from what seems too good to be true, if it is not, to come back to that framework, right, just, and fair. If we apply that to money, he's being very literal with lust, but if we apply it to money, shiny objects, fast money plays, gambling, these are all based off of the same decision process. I just want it quick and I want it now. That's what lust is. That's what shiny object syndrome is. They're all made with the same mindset. I want it quick. I want it now. I don't care if it's going to help me later. That's why it is such a poor, it leads to nowhere. It leads to death. Poor habits are led by lust, whether that's lust for other people or for money or for status or for dopamine, whatever it is, they are led by lust. And again, wealthy people, the wealthy person's habit is led by wisdom, which is a narrow path, but it is ultimately in the long term a very profitable path, not just speaking about money, but in a happy, successful life. That is what he is talking about. And as we're ending up on the last several verses, but I'm just going to break this down very, very simply. I wrote down, I'm looking at my notes. I wrote it down very clearly. If we can put all of this into a framework, there is more to read, but if we can put all of this into a framework, poor people's habit is to chase money and opportunities directly. They avoid slow work and they avoid the slow process of gaining wisdom. They make decisions from greed, fear, and lust. And ultimately, they trap themselves and they hang around evil people, because that is where these traps have led. It is down the dark paths. Wealthy and wise people, what they do, their habits are to seek wisdom like treasure, chase wisdom the way others chase money. It is to use the framework, what is right, just, and fair, as your filter, as your framework to make money decisions, life decisions, well, investments, whatever it is. That is your filter. That is your framework. What is right? What is just? What is fair? And they are very quick to say no to seductive things, whether that's get rich quick or that's literal lust, other women or other men. They are very quick to ignore and reject those things. Chase wisdom, don't chase money, and wealth will just follow you. And if you are looking for more help, if you want to take more steps to proper wealth, if you want to make faith-aligned decisions with your money and with your business, I have put more information in the description, but that is why I created the 7-minute wealth audit. If you are curious about it, go read the description and it's there for you. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video where we're going to talk about Proverbs chapter 3.